Hello, Amesy here for Amesy's Antics. Welcome to my channel. I hope you are well today because we have another crafty project to have a go at, and this week we are going all things plant because I love a good house plant. Check out my snake plant here and Monty the Monstera at the other side of me. Now, does anybody else name their plants? I do, and Monty was looking a little bit bare, just had a plain plastic plant pot, and I think he needed a new tuxedo, so I have made a DIY fabric planter for him to really give him a bit of style and spruce him up a little bit, I guess. Now, fabric planters maybe sound a little bit weird because fabric and plants don't really seem to go together, they won't get wet, but they do add a really nice bit of style to the decor and a bit of texture. So if you're wanting to spruce up your house plant, then a DIY fabric planter is a perfect way to go. And not only this, you can actually use these as storage baskets as well and make fabric baskets in this way. So if you would like to see how to make a DIY fabric planter or plant pot, then let's get crafting. To make the DIY fabric planter, you are going to need two different types of material, one for the lining and one for the outer. Now, my lining is actually split into two because I wanted a sequin trim, but you can just use one piece for this. And then the outer piece is a really nice velvet material. Now, these are a little bit soft for a fabric planter, so because of this, you need a nice heavy stabilizer. So if you're going for a thinner material, get some heavy stabilizer to give them a bit of stiffness. And then of course, you're going to need your normal sewing supplies to put it all together. To get the measurements for your material, you are going to need to measure your plant pot that it is designed for. So from the bottom up, measure up just past the lip of the plant pot, and mine is 25 centimeters in this instance. And then you are also going to want to measure the widest part of the plant pot. So in my case, this is the tray that it sits in, and just draw around this on a scrap piece of paper. Now, I'm using like brown paper here, packaging paper, which is great for creating sewing patterns on. So just draw all the way around and then add on 2 centimeters around the whole edge and mark this as well. And then to calculate the amount of material you need to go around the whole of the pot, you want to take the diameter with them added 2 centimeters that we did on the template and times this by pi, which is 3.14. Who thought we'd be using pi? And that will give you the amount that you're going to need in length. So mark this out on a scrap piece of paper as your template, and then cut out one of the outer material, one of the lining, and one of the fabric stiffener. Now, for the lining on this, I actually cut 8 centimeters of the sequin material and reduced the amount of the actual lining material, because when I join it together it would be the correct height. I actually cut out some of the heavy duty stabilizer for each of these pieces of material to give it a really nice bit of stiffness. So the first thing to do is actually iron out all of your material, make sure there's no creases or bumps in them, and then attach the heavy duty stabilizer to each part. So the shiny side will be the glue side, and this is a bit that goes to the wrong side of the material. The next thing to do is create that lining part. Now, obviously you don't have to do this bit if you are just having one piece of lining, but if you want a nice jazzy cuff like this, then you just want to join them at one edge of the main lining part, placing them right side to right side, and then sewing a narrow seam all the way along that raw edge. To keep the newly formed seam flat, you just want to press this with an iron, folding it down towards the main lining part, and then just do a top stitch over the outside of this to keep it nice and flat. Then you want to fold this in half so that the two raw ends meet together and sew a seam along this line, repeating for the outer material as well. The fabric planter should now be taking shape and have that round look to it, just without that base piece attached, which we're going to do in a second. Then to attach the base of the planter to the main body of it, you are going to need pins, and a lot of them. So start by getting the round part of the material and attach it right side to the bottom part of that newly formed planter, as you can see here. And you can see you do need a lot of pins. Now do be careful, because I scratched my arms to smithereens when I was doing this, so do be careful when using these pins. And then just sew a seam all the way along around that edge, back stitching at the start and end of that seam just for some added strength and security, and removing the pins as you go, because you don't want to break your needle going over them. Now some machines do push the pins out of the way, but just be careful that you don't. And then your seam will be attached like this. Repeat with the outer material as well. Now if you do have thicker material for the outer part, you may find that it's a bit harder to sew around. Once sewn together, you then want to flip the lining piece right side out, and you should have your newly formed planter lining looking lovely. Keep the outer part of the planter wrong side around, and then place that newly flipped lining piece inside this, attaching it around that top edge with some pins and clips, because we are going to sew around this edge. Now what you want to do is start your stitch with a back stitch, then sew around, but leave around a 10cm gap back stitching this part, because this is where you will turn the liner the right side out. Not the liner, the plant pot the right side out. Then, using the gap that was left, it is time to turn the DIY fabric planter right side out. So place your hand in the gap and bring out that outer part of the plant pot. And it is a little bit tricky because the gap is only little, so do be careful. You do need to give it a bit of a tug, but just be careful where you have backstitch, because you don't want that seam ripping and coming undone. But then just pull it all the right side out, and it is nearly finished. And to finish the planter off, all that is needed is a top stitch all around that top edge, closing up that gap that was left, and the DIY fabric planter is ready to be used. They have how to make a DIY fabric planter, and it really does add that bit of texture and style to your home decor, and I think Monty looks pretty snazzy in his new suit. Don't you agree? Let me know what you think in them comments below of this DIY, and if you've enjoyed the video, please do give it a big thumbs up. If you are not already subscribed, then please do consider hitting that subscribe button to keep up with more of my crafting antics, because there's lots of different videos already on the channel and coming up onto the channel, ranging from these sewing projects to a bit of beauty DIY and a sprinkling of travel. A new video every Sunday morning, so if you're not already subscribed, then please do hit that subscribe button and join the lovely crafty family here on Ames's Antics. And check out my blog linked below, Ames's Antics, because there's a ton more information over on the blog for you to have a look at. And with that said, I will see you in next week's video, and I hope you have a lovely rest of your day and week, and I will see you next time. Bye!